And the news is back. After a bit of a break there, I took a break, but I'm back too.
Back sampling some real freedom, John. Were you?
Yeah, real freedom right here in the crack. That's right.
Did you cry when you entered your first Walmart?
With both eyes. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And he's got the T-shirt to prove it.
He's got 58 T-shirts, each with a descending quality of slogan on the front.
$4.97 a piece. How can I not buy them? I kind of have to. They're kind of. Yeah.
He's currently sporting a wonderful model. It's an American flag stenciled with beer pong paraphernalia. Yes, you've guessed it. The ping pong ball represented the stars, and the little red cup, which is ubiquitous to all American high school movies. Where do you get those little red cups, by the way?
Every store. You don't have those?
Are little plastic cups always red in the United States?
You can get different colors.
No, you cannot. Have you ever seen American Pie? The cups are always red. Anyway, let's continue.
Speaking of cups, see what I did there?
Oh, I saw what you did there.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of cups, let's start with the big news this week. Poland's national men's football team returning from the World Cup. Humiliated, embarrassed. I don't know what the right word is. After 3 matches, 2 goals in 3 matches. Mathematically eliminated after the second match. After being tipped to go pretty far in the tournament. Guys, what do you make of Poland's performance?
8th in the FIFA rankings.
8th in the FIFA. Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
What do you make of the disaster in Russia?
Well, I would say that my prediction of Poland getting all the way to the semi-finals is aging like a turd in the Senegalese sun. It's not going well for me, prediction-wise, this World Cup. Although I did predict that Germany would get knocked out early.
You did?
Yeah,
It's a pretty incredible prediction, folks.
Pretty good.
Right into Mystic Dave.
They
Anytime
cancel
you like.
each other out there, I think.
I think I cancelled them out. Yeah. That was. Look, Navalka's getting a lot of stick for his tactics. Yeah, the 3 at the back. Although, is he responsible for those 2 horrendous errors that cost Poland 2 goals in the Senegal game? Poland have a horrible habit of playing badly and losing the first match in a major tournament.
Yep.
You cannot do that. You have to at least draw your first game and give yourself options for the last match.
I think this is their 3rd World Cup in a row where they were mathematically eliminated after 2 matches.
They've lost 6 of their last 8 World Cup matches. That's a really, really poor record.
Yeah, I think it's generally understood. I mean, you lose the first game in the group stages, and it's an uphill struggle from there on in.
Absolutely.
I mean, psychologically and, well, actually just like points and goals, of course.
Needless statistic, even though we haven't qualified Ireland for 16 years for a World Cup, we have qualified for 3 World Cups and we've emerged from the group stages every time. All you need is a positive result in that first game and you're pretty much home and host. But I want to say something. Before you guys get started, I want to have a little rant.
Go ahead.
Oh, I've been watching Wojciech Szczesny. I know that's not the correct pronunciation, but it's close enough. You know who I'm talking about. He played in the Premier League for many years. He is an absolute liability for doing exactly what cost Poland that second goal. Now, Krychowiak's mistake is a bad one. Sure, it's a bit of bad luck with the substitute Niang coming back on the pitch, but Narek doesn't really realise what's going on. The back three didn't really help. But Szczesny decides to launch himself and run 35 metres to a ball he has no chance of getting. He did something similar in the opening game of the Euros as well. He came flying off his line and bundled someone over. I can't remember the specifics now, but everyone who's listening to this and knows the Polish national team is nodding their head in agreement. They should have played Fabianski. There's a reason West Ham just paid 12 million for him. He plays week in, week out in one of the toughest leagues in the world. Okay, I'm done.
Feel better?
I absolutely
do not feel better.
I agree with you, Dave.
So what, did we just get caught up in the hype and just kind of expect more? Is Poland overrated, or was it a genuine disaster of a good team failing to perform?
Oh, I don't think that they were overrated in the sense of, the majority of the squad are top players playing in the top leagues.
Were they
around
really
Europe.
the 8th best team in the world?
Well, that is
According
more
to
open to
FIFA.
question.
I always try to push this back on the person who's, I know you're about to take the piss out of the way, FIFA mark their rankings, yeah? Now, I'm guessing, John, no offence here, but anyone who grew up in Tampa doesn't really know how the coefficients are worked out anyway. Okay, how does it work?
I'm from Tampa.
How does it work?
I'm from Florida, so what do I know about this kind of thing?
How have Poland manipulated their coefficient to get to the top 10 in the world?
No, you can get good results against mediocre teams.
No.
Sure you can.
No. What you have to do, the way you bounce your world ranking is this. You take the top level of teams and you aim for the bottom teams within that grouping. There's what would you say? They're bunched together, A, B, C, D. So maybe the top 30 nations in the world are considered A teams. And there's a certain amount of points awarded for playing those teams and beating them in a friendly match. And if you're clever, what you do is you don't play too many friendlies against top nations who are going to beat you. You play them against teams that are in the top group, but that you have a good chance against. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, my question to you is, right, how would you work out the FIFA World Ranking?
I don't care, but no, here's my question for you. You asked me, I'll ask you something else. Do you think by any reasonable standard that Poland was the 8th best side in the world before the World Cup started?
I think
any
it's a very difficult thing to aggregate world rankings for completely different zones
were they top
around the
20?
world.
Were they one of the top 20 best teams?
I will give FIFA amazing stick for as long as you want for a lot of things.
No
but
answer to my question.
I think this question's a total nothing burger. It's the classic, aren't FIFA's world rankings ridiculous? Yes, okay. Everybody in the world ever who's looked at them thinks they're a bit weird.
Yeah, because the supposedly 8th best team in the world was beaten by Senegal and Colombia.
Colombia are a very good side.
Sure they are.
Yeah. Very good side.
But you know what, though? Just to play devil's advocate here, look, we all know Germany went out
as predicted.
Group stage, as predicted by Dave. Argentina has been mediocre. Brazil maybe less than convincing sometimes. This is a World Cup. Wait, this is a World. What?
Now hold on, let's just back the train up here a little.
Brazil drew with what's your?
No, you're right. There's a reason everybody who follows football is tipping Brazil to win the World Cup. It's because they look shit. Yeah.
No, they don't look shit. But
Neymar struggled a little bit for form.
Anyway, bigger picture. This is a World Cup that Italy failed to qualify for, that Holland failed to qualify for. This is all a very roundabout way of getting to my question, which is the earth shifting? Is there something big going on here with the big clubs not being so dominant, or is this just a coincidence of these titans of football having a weak spell?
Or is it just the joy of a knockout competition?
I blame the draft.
I'll close the window.
Sorry, John. Now, nothing's shifting. Nothing's really changing unless we finally get an upset winner of the World Cup. It's the most long overdue tournament in sports to have an outsider win it, if you ask me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the same.
Why
same
couldn't
size
Croatia
over and
go
over.
all the way? They've shown what an excellent side they are. I think belief is a lot to do with it. You'll see as the tournament goes on how nervous teams are in the knockout stages of the World Cup, how much it means to them. There's this theory that international football has been devalued by the popularity of club value. It's another absolute nonsense theory that people spit out down the pub, left, right and centre, and never really analyse whether there's any truth to it. Now, to me, there is nothing bigger than the World Cup, and there never will be anything bigger than the World Cup, no matter how much Gianni Infantino tries to mess with its format and completely make it irrelevant. And the reason for that is it means so much to so many people. Your childhood's marked by the World Cups that you remember. It's a fantastic tournament. It really could do with an outsider winning it, but more than likely Brazil are going to win it, if you ask me.
It's
a very hard thing
to go back to Poland, there's a school of thought here, and I happen to think there's something to this, that the Polish side got a little too mixed up in their own hype. Too many commercials, too many endorsements, too much time in front of a camera, not enough time on the pitch. You think there's something to that?
I don't know, actually.
I don't think there is, really. I think all these guys care too much. That's actually what it boils down to. There's an element of pressure I don't think any of us understand. You grow up, your dream's to be a footballer, and finally you're at the one tournament that sometimes you even have to be reverential when you play it on FIFA. It's that important, and all of a sudden you have a bad result or something goes against you, like the Glick shoulder injury. A good example of this would be after the Senegal game, Lewandowski was criticised mercilessly for what I could tell no reason. He wasn't given any service to work with. He missed a few chances in the Japan game. All right, maybe he didn't have a great tournament. It's not a great stat that he didn't score again. But in the second game, you saw the reaction to the criticism from the first game. In the Colombia match, he was dropping deep, trying to win the ball, trying to run his arse off, and he was out of position when they finally did get an attack going. To me, that kind of symbolised how much Lewandowski was listening to the public. He does have his face everywhere. He is the face of his stool and many other products, but it's a short career. So
yeah, I think this is too much. We talked about this a few weeks ago when we were talking about Polish sports stars. It's just every commercial break has his face on like 5 different things. The coach, he's endorsing this and that. Błaszczykowski is endorsing this and that. It's too much. The hype is too much. Every commercial is about the tournament. And it's just, I've been here long enough. You guys have been too. You see this repeated every 2 years. You start with the qualifying, for whether it's for the Euros or for the World Cup. All the matches go on, and it's a media event. Then Poland gets to the stage. If they qualify, they disappoint, and then it starts over 6 months later. And that's what we're going to see again. We're going to see the same thing again when the qualification for, Euro 2020, when that starts. Everything's going to reset like this World Cup disaster never happened. And we're going to be exposed to the same hype over and over, and it's a cycle.
I don't think Polish people hype up their national team at all. They're incredibly realistic. Before the World Cup preview and during the World Cup preview, I actually kind of gave out about the fact that Polish people weren't more enthusiastic about the whole thing. They showed how realistic they are about the national team to me in the lead up to this World Cup. There were concerns that, just like you pointed out, but that's the kind of criticism that always follows footballers and no other sports people. Because footballers make more money and people don't like that. And I've never understood that. You know, John, back at the Atlanta games, you know, you were trying out for the synchronized swimming team.
Yeah.
If you had made it and those offers had to come rolling in for sponsorship, you wouldn't have said no, would you? You'd have posed in your pink Speedos and just taken the money for the Cheerios
Probably
commercial.
not, but at the same time, I would understand if the public was outraged at my failure to win the gold medal. Because I was filming commercials every second day or something like that. So you're generally sympathetic to Lewandowski. Let's pick on him because he's the corporation here. He's the business entity here. He's the guy getting the big bucks. He did not produce at all, and literally at all. He's 0 goals. But you're sympathetic?
I'm very sympathetic. I think that guy right now is really in pain. You know, I think he feels it more than anyone. Nobody will ever understand the type of pressure carrying a World Cup team.
Yeah, life is hard when you have 50 million euro in the bank or whatever it is. He's feeling the pressure. He's feeling the pain.
Go back and look at the still shots of Lionel Messi after the 2014 World Cup final, which Argentina really had a good chance of winning if Higuain had brought his shooting boots. As he's presented with the Player of the Tournament award, look at his face on YouTube and tell me that guy doesn't want the ground to swallow him up. And for his whole career, I think he'd swap it all to bring that home for Argentina. And that's a guy that's lived in Spain since he was 13.
All right, but you bring up the subject of emotion and enthusiasm generally. When I look at the Polish team, I don't see guys that are genuinely 100% invested, emotionally invested and dedicated to the cause. I don't. And even when, who was it? I think it was Morocco, when Morocco went out, and maybe Iran. Those guys, you know, after losing, after being sent home, they're crying on the pitch. They are obviously, you know, they gave 110%, whatever cliche you want to use. And I don't see that in the Polish players. I don't see the dedication. I don't believe that they would play for free. And, you know, maybe that's an unrealistic theoretical standard to use.
Should get a 3-match ban for crying on the pitch anyway.
I don't believe any of the Polish team is that just dedicated to winning. I just don't see it. I don't see the engagement.
Oh, it's an outrageous statement. Look, people are angry at the moment, and of course they're going to take that anger out on the players. The players understand that, but no, I totally disagree with what you're saying. This is these guys' dream. You know, they live it. They dream.
Well, you wouldn't know that by watching.
Well, let me tell you one thing, right?
By watching how they play.
The reason good footballers misplace 10-yard passes, and my God, especially in the Colombia game, it was embarrassing to watch at times. Top level midfielders who can't find their mate, who's open for a pass, who's 5 meters away. That's nerves, if you ask me. There's nothing that I can explain that with, apart from the fact that these guys were so nervous because they knew they hadn't delivered against Senegal. They knew the nation had questioned exactly the way you just did, questioned their commitment. Can you imagine what it's like knowing 40 million people, your countrymen, are questioning your dedication to the cause? It's un-American. I just like the word un-American.
Dave takes Brazil. Josh, how's your English team going to fare in the remaining time?
Well, it's been encouraging so far, obviously, but I think that Colombia is going to be a very tough game. Colombia are no pushover.
Is that your way of saying that you don't think England's going any further than they've gone already?
No, I'm not necessarily pessimistic. I think that Gareth Southgate has surprisingly done quite a canny job so far of managing, not just training, but also managing this England side. I think he probably did about the right thing with Belgium.
No, he didn't.
We're going to disagree on that.
He completely shot the bed. And he knew it himself. You could see it in his face. For the first time I've ever seen Southgate completely uncomfortable giving an interview was after that game.
All right. I'm going to interrupt there.
I got to say one thing, right? The
What?
English fans, John, probably this is a bit complicated for you, so get your pen and paper out, okay?
Here we go again.
This is to do with the side of the draw England were going to be in, yeah? Now, it became received wisdom within about 6 hours after they won their second game, smashed Panama out of the park, that they should be on the side of the draw that makes them avoid Brazil in the quarter final. Okay, this is a team that hasn't won a knockout game at a World Cup since 2006.
When you said you were going to say one thing, I thought that meant it was going to be short.
I'm going to finish up quickly here, and I'm just going to say the only calculation Gareth Southgate needed to make was who's better, Colombia or Japan? And the answer to that is absolutely Colombia are way better than Japan. They're a very dangerous side. Even without James Rodriguez, you're going home.
All right, very quick, sort of, kind of, but not really related note on the world of Polish sports. Saw this in the news. I thought this was kind of interesting. A former Polish athlete, a track and field athlete, is putting himself forward to be the head of the World Anti-Doping Agency. He's the current Polish sports minister, by the way. I'm not so interested in that. The world doping angle. I'm interested in the fact that Poland has a sports minister, and lots of countries do have a sports minister. My question is why? What does having a sports minister do?
It's a good question.
What's the point?
It should always be part. In Ireland, it's part of a portfolio. So our sports minister is also the transport minister. But anytime there's
sport and transport,
yeah, we have to do that a lot in our cabinet in Ireland. Okay, you know, if you think
you have to wear multiple hats, huh?
If you think that position's irrelevant in, say, a country the size of America, you can imagine how little for our minister of sport to do.
No, really. Let's say your sports minister disappears tomorrow. Not that I'm wishing anything bad to happen to him, but
Minister Ross, you're welcome on the KrakCast anytime.
What happened? Who cares? What happens? What's the consequences of your sports minister disappearing?
A very good question.
Seriously,
sometimes
I
you just stump me, and you're totally right about that.
Does the UK have a sports minister?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I think it gets rolled in as well in England. I don't think it's solely devoted, and it depends. Each cabinet's got a different setup, so you can have a minister with different portfolios, more than one.
Anyway, moving on, leaving world of sports behind us.
Let's cover his hairline. He's got a very strong hairline. This guy,
very nice hairline.
He's also disturbingly.
Moving on. You're ruining my flow here, Dave. I had a flow.
Sorry, John.
But you're totally ruining it.
Flow away.
Speaking of ministers, another Polish minister is suggesting instituting a sugar tax in Poland to help fight obesity, much similar to a tax on tobacco and alcohol and other things. Again, just a suggestion, but who knows where it's going to go. What do you think about a sugar tax?
Well, it'll undoubtedly have unforeseen consequences, like just about any kind of government intervention. We know this over years and years and years and years and years. You put
unintended
a tax on
consequences.
Yeah. I mean, you put a tax on something, then providers have said, "Good, find an alternative which is not taxed," or something even more unhealthy than sugar.
A rise in sweeteners, Josh, I think, is predicting, and I think he's dead right. What gets me about these public health plays is the way it's presented. So it's like you can nearly hear them sitting around the table. We need more tax money. We've already juiced the smokers and the drinkers. Who are we going after next? Fat people. People hate fat people. Let's go after them, yeah? And then they do something that I think is amazingly sneaky and wrong. They make an economic argument that sugar ruins the health service, yeah, because of obesity or whatever. It's just like, why can't you just be honest about it? You're taking another 5 cents a can out of a fat person's pocket and you're not giving it back, okay? And that's all these taxes are. They're just another way of collecting more VAT.
That's not only fat people eating sugar.
Yeah, I know, but a fat person's less likely to give up Coca-Cola. Studies have shown this. You might put off maybe people who are new to buying soft drinks and persuade them to buy the diet version, but you're not going to stop people drinking Coca-Cola. It's one of the most popular beverages in the world.
There's a more fundamental question here that nobody ever asks. What's the point of the tax code? Is it there to raise revenue, or is it there to punish or reward certain behaviors?
It's there to make money. Spend.
So if it's there to make money, then why don't we tax things that don't necessarily have this impact on people's eating decisions?
Lurking in the back of all of this is this idea of what they call a Pigou tax, after the French economist whose last name was Pigou and whose first name escapes me right now. And that is that if there is something that has a detrimental effect and that you think you want to control the usage of it, then applying a tax has a dual benefit in that it reduces consumption and also increases revenue.
Yes, it can have that effect. If
I mean, a similar theory with the carbon tax.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is ties into the tragedy of the commons as well. You know, whose responsibility is it to look after the air? But I wanted to say something. You reminded me of something. There was a fascinating study about 10 years ago by a medical economist from Holland called Peter van Thiel. And what he did is he asked a very important question. He said, okay, the argument governments make for these taxes is as follows. Because our citizens need us to help them stop doing this, and because it costs our health service money, we're going to tax unhealthy things. Now, as I've already said, I think it's all about raising revenue, and that's all bullshit. But what he did is he said, okay, well, if that's your argument, let's put it to the test. And here's the test. What is the lifetime cost to the state of people who are obese and people who smoke? And it turns out, of course, people who are obese and people who smoke die younger and don't claim their pension and don't have to be given dementia care and don't have to...
and pay huge taxes their whole lives when buying that alcohol.
Exactly. Everybody had an uncle who smoked 60 a day and dropped dead, the day he took retirement. They, statistically, and this is the Dutch system he looked at all lifetime payments. And by the way, this is a very controversial way of calculating them, but to me, it's the only logical way. But I only say that because this is the way the argument's always framed in public health, isn't it? It's for your own benefit, man. Don't question it. We know best. It's ridiculous. Peter Van Thiel, if you listen to this, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, just contact us on Facebook.
I've already contacted him. He has not written back.
No, it's the big irony. I mean, we compare it to cigarette taxes, I guess is the closest thing. If every smoker gave up cigarettes tomorrow, it would be financial catastrophe
it would cost
for every government.
Every state an absolute fortune. Yeah. And that's even without the argument that I just made about them dying younger. That's just on a pure tax collection thing. The VAT on cigarettes it's just
so a proposal like this, a proposal like a sugar tax, is this just political posturing or is it naivete or good intentions gone wrong or what?
It's A.
Yes. Political posturing every time.
And they want more money to pay for other things.
Speaking of other things and money, also in the world of Polish medicine, the government this week announced a plan to significantly increase spending on the National Health Service in the next 6 years by a very significant amount of money. We're talking billions of zlotys here.
It's 6.8% of GDP.
Part of that increase is supposed to go to doctors' salaries. Now, doctors, they haven't decided on a final figure yet, but the doctors want 9,200 zlotys a month gross. 9,200 zlotys a month gross. That works out to just over €2,000. Reasonable? Too much? Too little? What are you thinking here?
I think it's more than reasonable. I'm less opinionated on this one. I really have to say, I think that doctors in this country are underpaid, and it's going to lead inevitably to more and more emigration of Polish doctors. Poland will start to see issues with its own success, and healthcare spending is going to be one of them. It's a massive issue in every country. It's not an easy thing to figure out. It really isn't. There was a strike, wasn't there, with Polish doctors? They're really...
Yeah, like hunger strikes. Nurses do the same thing, actually, quite a lot. Yeah.
I mean, is 9,000 zloty a high salary for the education and the training and the things these guys have to do every day? No, not in my opinion. I think they're well worth it. But will it lead to... even if they're awarded the 9,000 one, it gets nowhere. In Ireland, we can't retain our doctors, and they're paid multiples of that because their dream is that, there's always a better place to go, isn't there? And America just represents the dream for most Irish doctors. That's what's the gold standard of seeing us.
Well, I think also we have the issue of, it's not just their salary as doctors working in hospitals. It's also the fact that many, if not most, also have second jobs working in private practice, which is better paid. The corollary of which, of course, is that they are then working far longer hours. And I think, Dave, you flagged up something about the government wants to try and peg back the amount of hours that doctors are doing in private practice.
Yeah, I think if they're going to sanction a big pay rise, which looks to be on the cards, they want to tie that into doctors doing less private work. But when you try and do that, we've big controversy in Ireland at the moment. Doctors were supposed to deliver a certain amount of hours and they didn't, which is apparently not fraud when a doctor does it.
I have a contrarian I have a contrarian kind of minority opinion on this, which is kind of what I do.
Go for it, John.
Now, generally, I'm sympathetic to the doctors, but it's only fair to point out that in Poland, if you went to medical school, the government paid for it. When you started medical school, you essentially made a commitment to work for the government when you got out. You know, the government, we have nationalized healthcare. These are not market forces. These are not market forces determining the salaries involved. So you can't demand market rates for your work when you agree to work for the government. Sorry, you can't have both. You can't have the ironclad stability of government employment and market salaries. After the government paid for your 6 years of schooling to qualify you.
Interesting point.
Well,
So
a big part of the problem is in Ireland.
You can't get everything you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of countries, what they do is they try and say after you graduate, you got to give us a certain amount of years, okay? But what's to stop the person the minute that period ends of emigrating?
Yeah, good question.
And that's a huge problem
like here
because
in Poland,
that drives salary inflation anyway across the whole
you've
health
got
sector.
a few issues here. You've got government paying for higher education, not only medical school in Poland, but also higher education generally. And let's take somebody here in Poland, they're 24, 26 years old, they finish university, whether medical qualifications, engineering, whatever. They leave and go to another country. Doesn't the Polish government have a reasonable claim to demanding some kind of compensation for the education that they've given them?
What I'm saying is this is a problem in
everywhere.
every country that subsidizes education, John. I mean, you know, we've a similar issue in Ireland, to be honest with you, especially with nurses going to the NHS. You know, we train a huge amount of them, and the NHS kind of match the Irish salary plus housing benefit plus this plus that. They know Irish nurses will come well qualified. They know they'll have good rapport with the clients and the patients. I don't have any answers for you here, John. Healthcare is a sticky one. I can't rant and rave about something that's just so complicated.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And all I'll say is for Poland, they're going to see more and more issues with their healthcare system because, ironically, the richer a country gets, always this becomes a complete political football. And can you name me a country in the world that's cracked healthcare, John?
Nobody. But wait, isn't it a fair question? You know, if you want to be paid well for your talents, don't work for the government, right?
I think, yeah.
So, and if you live in a nation where the government monopolizes healthcare, you know what you're getting into. When you're 19, 20 years old in Poland and you're starting your medical school education, you know the salaries for doctors in Poland. So 6 years later, when you're qualified and it's your turn to find a job, I think you kind of lose your right to complain about the salaries that you knew about 6 years ago when you started the education that qualifies you for these jobs.
Let me run one by you. I saw a very interesting point made in a news article. It was actually about the tariff issues between America and China and Europe. And an economist made a fascinating point that America has always applied protectionism in the age of globalization because the Medical Association of America don't allow foreign doctors to come in and perform, you know, train up to American standards and cheaply become doctors. Do you get what I'm saying here? You know, it's always about manufacturing tariffs, whereas what America or any rich country could do is say, well, we're opening all that up. As long as you pass this training course, doesn't matter where you come from, you can go straight into our medical system. They're like you say, they're closed shops. They're economic basket cases. The whole medical system, the whole way the economics of it works is crazy. Is there anything to that theory, John? Unfettered immigration for doctors.
Oh, let's save that for another news. And on that light note of international tariffs and medical care policy.
I just thought it was an interesting point.
It is. Again, for another show.
Sorry.
We'll bring it to a close. See you next time on the news.
Take care.
Cheers.